today was a good day for this country and for the Constitution. And it does not matter what your politics are. Everybody should embrace that, because if we have a Republican president or a Democratic president, it shouldn't matter. Nobody should be dealing with the ordeal that President Trump has dealt with. The political and legal lawfare, frankly, that they've done to him has been unfair. It's un-American. And today was a really big step in the right direction. So I commend the Supreme Court. I ask that people like him take a step back and remember the America we grew up in, because it was not like this.
I agree with Alina Habba there. America did not used to be like this. Insurrections weren't really a thing back in the 80s. But unfortunately, that's where we're at right now. And the he that she's talking about there is Representative Jamie Raskin, who has responded to the Supreme Court's announcement that Donald Trump will not be taken off the ballots by sort of taking them up on kind of a legislative challenge that they've laid out. Now, we're gonna give you a little bit of Jamie Raskin in a few moments, but joining us now to comment on Alina Habba, the SCOTUS, and the state of Donald Trump and ballot access, as well as other topics, David K. Johnston returns to the show. Investigative journalist, author, most recently of The Big Cheat, How Donald Trump Fleeced America and Enriched Himself and His Family. David, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be with you again, John.
Glad to have you here. It's a good time to have you on to break down the many different aspects of these stories that are developing every day. But she was talking there about the Supreme Court and their decision, which came out just yesterday. I know that you've commented recently on social media about that. Tell us a little bit more about how you interpret what they've said about ballot access and the related issues.
Well, this is a unanimous decision. That's important, but 4 of the justices basically dissented without calling it that. Amy Coney Barrett, a Trump appointee and intellectual lightweight of the first water of lightweights, wrote a piece saying, we shouldn't be doing these things, criticizing the other members of the court. And then the 3 liberal justices, Brown, Sotomayor, and Kagan, wrote a withering rebuke of the court majority that began by quoting from the majority's decision in Dobbs, the first ever Supreme Court case that took away a right, in this case, a woman's right to control her reproductive nature. And they just went after the court left and right, saying, all you had to do by your own standard was just say, states may not prevent federal officers from appearing on the ballot. They can do that for state officers, but not federal. And stop. Instead, they went into this long, as the 3 of them said, fabricating law out of nothing that isn't in the Constitution. And by the way, your audience should probably know, I'm a professor of law at Syracuse University's College of Law, but I am not a lawyer. I teach legal theory and principle. I had no idea how to practice law, but I understand how the law works. That's what I teach.
Well, conveniently, neither does she. So I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Nor Alina Habba.
Yeah. So look, I think you're right. It was a weird unanimous decision where there were multiple quasi dissents against each other, even though they're theoretically all on the same page. But coming out of that, while they effectively stopped the states from doing this, they did lay out a path to potentially barring Donald Trump, but saying that Congress needs to act. And so within 1 day of that decision, Representative Jamie Raskin decided to apparently take up that challenge. And here he is describing what he's going to do.
The Supreme Court punted and said it's up to Congress to act. And so I am working with a number of my colleagues, including Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Eric Swalwell, to revive legislation that we had to set up a process by which we could determine that someone who committed insurrection is disqualified by Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. And the House of Representatives already impeached Donald Trump for participating in insurrection by inciting it. So the House has already pronounced upon that, and there was also a 57-43 vote in the Senate. The question is whether Speaker Mike Johnson would allow us to bring this to the floor.
My guess would be that he will not, that this effort would be very difficult, and that the Supreme Court, of course, knows that in these partisan times, Congress could never act in the way that they've laid out is the only way to bar him from the ballot. But that said, pursuing it, making it a national issue could theoretically help the Democrats, even if it doesn't actually succeed. What do you think about Raskin's plan here?
Well, I think at every opportunity, the Republicans should have Democrats and people who believe in the Constitution in their face. So in that sense, this is politically a smart move. But The Supreme Court's decision in this case should be very troubling because they suggest that it is not self-reinforcing to say that an insurrectionist, or, and this is a crucial phrase, anyone who gave aid or comfort to insurrectionists has to have a law passed. Well, what about the rest of the 14th Amendment? Are we now going to say you are not entitled to due process of law unless Congress passes a law? I mean, I think they've actually set what could become a deeply troubling assault on liberty. And that's been the tenor of the Roberts Court. Take away voting for Black Americans who live in the South through the Voting Rights Act, the Dobbs decision on women, and many others that should be real concerning to us.
100%, yeah. Yeah, and look, to some extent, I think they know some of the damage that they're doing there. There's other potential ramifications and consequences that we don't necessarily understand. But look, I for one, I didn't expect it to really go any differently, but it kind of sucks that they apparently didn't care enough about whether it was insurrection or whether he supported to even weigh in on that. They've cleared the path for, other people to attempt what Donald Trump tried to do and failed. And we're not even talking about like some hypothetical, like 12 years from now, Tucker Carlson refuses to accept defeat. Donald Trump could well pull this, in this election.